Thank God it's Friday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Murayo Afolabi Brown. As always, I have the ladies with me. Hello, Alaja Nima Akashat Zibiri. How are you doing?
I'm not so fine. My heart is heavy.
Oh.
Last night I got a call that my father's very close friend passed, and I have never known this man as my dad's friend. It's closer than family.
Wow.
I mean, from my youngest, from around 12, when we started as a family friend, he's always been there. I remember my law school days, the meetings, saying, Nima, you will go to law school. If your father died today, you go. My wedding, he was seated.
Wow.
When I was pregnant with Imran, he would show up at the hospital every Friday with my dad. He said, Alaji, you buy already, let me buy groundnut. Nima and groundnut. As in, this man, Alaji Mumuni Fasasi, is from the Mumuni family in Lagos. And I'm talking about it, and my heart is so heavy. I feel the need to cry, but it's not just coming out. He was one of those who made sure that even after my dad passed, he maintained my father's widow. He would show up, check up on his kids, pay my mom a stipend every month. And he had a surgery and fell ill. And we were expecting, he had called for the burial ground to be arranged by my father's side. And
Really?
all the sequence of events, these people lived a life of worship. That's what they did. He retired from the CBN, my dad from NNPC, and they just lived a life towards death and prepared for the hereafter. The lessons of their lives, so it makes my heart so heavy. We were more than 20 to 30 young people they influenced in the Muslim community where I grew up. All of us, Ajimomin, I'm going to really miss this person.
Wow.
Really,
Sorry
as in deeply miss him.
Really.
Because I just thought I still have a dad. And so this happened now. It's like losing the father over again. It's really waiting on my heart.
So sorry for your loss. I know that can be very painful. Sorry. May his soul rest in peace.
May Allah grant him Jannah. May Allah wipe all his sins. May Allah wash him with coal, with water, rain, and hail, and grant him Jannah. Purify him, and just grant him Jannah.
Well, sorry.
Amen.
Hello, Mariam. How you doing?
Good. I came to rant. Arik Air. My cousin was supposed to board a flight yesterday, and they just cancelled. No explanation, nothing. Just, so we had to be calling back and forth. Why? Cancelled, not postponed, not delayed, just cancelled. They've now moved it to about 5 days after. What? That's the next time that he can get on that flight. So from Jos to Lagos, it was. Whoa. So I just thought it was inconsiderate, insensitive. Now, it's not everybody that has billions and millions of naira that they can just hop on another flight. You know, some people put their monies together, plan their lives. If that person was coming for a job interview, what have you done? The person was a student going, you just... and then they get away with this because there's never any compensation, there's never any repercussions for this kind of behavior. I'm really upset about this Arik Air.
So who's going to write them? Somebody needs to write them or something. There has to be...
Usually do compensation. Don't want...
No, they just said that there will be a refund after 7 working days. But how about the time that he has... What the person was coming from, was coming for?
They would, I'm sure. I've seen it before. If you push it, they'll do an out-of-court settlement, most likely.
How you doing?
Grateful to God.
Also.
No. Let's lighten the mood a bit. So, gratitude challenge, day 12. I'm grateful for my business. Yesterday, I didn't have an opportunity to speak. I was grateful for my... What did I say I was grateful for yesterday?
It was your view.
Okay, there was a day I missed. I think that was the day before yesterday where I was grateful for my talents and opportunities. And one of the reasons I'm highlighting all these things to be grateful for is sometimes we sit back and we think that God hasn't done so much for us. But then when we put our pen to paper, you realize so many things that you have achieved without even knowing that they have come, and just keeps you in that gratitude mode. And no matter how difficult life is, there's always something to be grateful for. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm grateful. Then it's the weekend also. I hope I can rest.
It's the weekend. Today is Thursday. Oh.
Today is Friday. It's the weekend. So I hope I'm going to rest after the show.
Let's slide. Sorry about that.
God saved you today. Okay. That YK is not here.
Okay, let's go on a short break.
You don't have any gist for us?
Nothing. Tomorrow we're doing a few things in the office, and then there's nothing major.
Okay.
Good. We'll see. All right. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we look at the front pages of the papers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Okay, we're going to start with the nation. Anxiety in 7 states as Supreme Court delivers judgment. Process for revival of Ajaokuta steel mill begins, says minister. Road project contractors get green light on 1.5 trillion naira payment. Experts in cautious optimism on shake-up of banks by CBN. Meningitis breaks out in Ogun, Ekiti, Ondo, Osun, and others. Strong forces for deployment against bandits and kidnappers. And Umosu, Amunike, Lawal give AFCON tips to Super Eagles. Okay, which story are we starting with?
Should I start with the health story? So, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, meningitis outbreak is in Nigeria right now. And they said usually because it comes with the dry dust, wind, and cold nights, is of course prevalent right now. He said the disease claimed 190 lives across the country last year. They had over 303 confirmed cases and 2,765 suspected cases across the 30 states and the FCT. And this year already, they have confirmed cases that occurred in 19 states in the north and the FCT and some southern states such as Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Ekiti, Ogun, and Ondo and Osun State. So in the public health advisory, we are advised to, stay clean and, keep maybe a face mask on. They said it is a period that comes with upper respiratory tract infection. And so we should just do the right thing to prevent as much as possible.
Okay. So the federal government is planning to rid Nigerian forest of criminal elements. This was according to the Minister of Environment, Malam Balarabe Abbas Lawal. And he said this yesterday at Kaduna, two-day top management retreat organized by the ministry. And he went ahead to say that security forces will be deployed to flush out bandits and kidnappers responsible for insecurity in those hidden places. And he says apart from constituting security risks, there are bandits, poachers, kidnappers, and other criminal elements that are hibernating in the forest, and they are a threat to the Great Green Wall project aimed at fencing the country from desert encroachment. And he says, though there are some forest guards in place already, but they are not enough to tackle the bandits and other criminals, so they are likely going to be increasing them. Then he says, we have a very serious issue with our forest. Our forests have become hibernation grounds for bandits, poachers, and kidnappers. So the only way we can save the forest and save our communities is to do something very drastic. We need to get enough force into the forest to clean them of these miscreants that have turned our forest into something else. And we are on it. We have similar issues in oil areas and mining sites as well. So government will be coming up with a very strong measure to try and clean out the forests of these people. They are also looking at adopting what the Americans did in the 16th to the 17th century, where they had a lot of pirates disturbing them. They got coastal guards. So seeing how they are exploring how they can also get coastal guards for Nigeria as well as building the Great Green Wall too, to also protect us from these people.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have. Our president has approved the setting up of an interministerial committee on the execution of 3 steel development projects, and that will also include the revival of the Ajaokuta steel mill. So the Minister of Steel Development says the committee will include the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Uzoka, Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Didle Alaka, and the Minister of Defense, Muhammadu Badaru, and the Minister of Steel himself. And the task that they have before them is to source for funding for the revitalization of the moribund Ajaokuta steel mill, and also work to actualize the setting up of a steel company by a Chinese company called Luan Steel Holding Group, and then also find a location for a proposed steel plant for the India firm Jindal Steel. They also said that the minister also explained that once if they're able to achieve what has been given them, that this administration will be able to create not less than 500,000 jobs from this. And then they also said that they had met up with Luan Steel, and Luan Steel is one of the top 20 steel companies in China that produces 20 million metric tons of steel per annum. So, they're saying that, we're doing business with, it's in good stead, this business. So it looks good. I hope they're able to put all this to do the work. And as we know, Ajaokuta Steel, it's a particular...
Long.
Yes, every administration comes and tries to revive it. Let's hope that finally it can be done this time around.
Okay, so the PDP in Edo Central district has adopted the former chairman of Sterling Bank, Asue Ighodalo, as the governorship aspirant from Edo State.
Wow.
The resolutions was reached and announced by the senatorial vice chairman of the party, Archbishop Anthony Okosun. He was adopted amongst the senators from that caucus. However, the leaders of the Edo North Central District have resisted this nomination, and they kicked against the purported endorsement of Governor Obaseki, saying that Asue is obviously his candidate. And if you recall, Shebu is from the north, Asue is from central, and the current governor is from the south. And he's endorsing the nomination from central. And Shebu is insisting that he's still going to run. So there's a lot of drama going on in there, but at least now we know the candidate that the governor is trying to push forward for the November elections coming. Moving on now to the Punch. Union Polaris Keystone CBN plans shareholder summit, compiles new directors list. Lagos NBA protesters storm police headquarters over brutality against lawyers. Netizens mourn as female banker kills self and pens suicide note. TB Joshua made childless couples to exchange spouses, says ex-worker. Widows of soldiers killed in 1992 plane crash demand compensation. Foremost industrialist Okoya clocks 84, advises FG on economy. Tension in Kano as Supreme Court decides Yusuf's fate today. Humanitarian Ministry, EFCC summons 20 directors and others. Okay,
so I have of course, MBA, the picture story in the Punch. The MBA of 5 districts protested to the Commissioner of Police headquarters yesterday, protesting the detention of one of their members who was detained over last year into the 1st of January this year at the Moshalashi police station by the DPO of the Moshalashi police station, Austin Arase. He said that the lawyer who had come to seek bail for his client, who was a carpenter who was being detained over failed contract, had been disrespectful to the police. And so he asked that he be locked up. And he was there for about 3 days before he was released. And the moment he was released, he fell ill and has been hospitalized since then. So the NBA, of course, are saying this is an abuse of lawyer against lawyers. Mr. Femi Falana, speaking on behalf of all of them, insists that they will do the right thing. But the Commissioner of Police, of course, was proactive even before the protest happened. He ordered that the DPO be removed immediately and investigation into what happened be started immediately as well. And the outcome of it will be, of course, hopefully dissuade or further protest. I'm happy that Femi Falana also confirmed that the CPU is already on top of the situation, but they are demanding more and respect for lawyers. Usually it's our work to show up, to go and arrange the release of our clients. But I cannot imagine me being locked up trying to get...
I heard that sometimes you get beat up and...
But even in sometimes. But I have good friends among the police, so some of these things I don't have.
That's not acceptable.
Okay, let's go on a short break now. When we come back, we continue with our review. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still reviewing The Punch. What's the story?
Yes, I have a human interest story. This is a very painful one. It's been on the news. It said Nigerians were mourning the death of a female banker worker in Ikorodu, Lagos State, who took her own life. The 32-year-old Amarachi Ugochukwu had died after consuming an insecticide. So the incident happened on Monday within the premises of the bank. They said that about around 1 p.m. She made her way to the restroom where she was said that she had drunk the insecticide unknown to her colleagues. But, after a while, some members of staff started looking for her because her phone, which she left on the table, was ringing continuously. She was not around to pick the calls, only for them to get into the restroom and found her lying dead on the floor. And they also found a note that she had written. So the notes was obtained, and they said, according to what she wrote, she was blaming the hard economy for her decision to end her life, that nothing was working for her. She says, and I quote, "Nothing is working in my life. My figures are low. My brain is clogged up. The economy is getting harder. My decisions are wrong. My mind is messed up. The future doesn't seem bright at all. I see extreme hardship. I can't bear the pain anymore." That was what she wrote, and also went ahead to apologize to her parents and siblings. That was how she concluded the writing. So, the bank manager had reported the incident to the police. A lot of people were talking about her. They also, people who knew her, who had probably done business with her, said she was also hustling outside the banking job. She was a shoemaker, and she did quite a number of deliveries during this December period. They knew her from her work. She was really a good shoemaker, as well as combining with the bank job that she was doing. People really felt bad about it. And, it was a call to holding government accountable, that the hardship is all around. Most Nigerians are feeling the tightness of the economy as it is, and we must hold government accountable to do things to at least help ameliorate the sufferings of the people. It's just a very painful story, and we'll all say that when you get to a point where you're feeling this way, you must talk to somebody. You must talk to a family member. You must find a profession. Just cry out, talk to somebody. Maybe if she had done that, people would have understood what was going on, and this wouldn't have ended like this. It's just painful.
Also rest in peace. I have a story of widows of military officers who had died in the Hercules C-130 military jet crashed in Lagos, December 26, 1992. Very sad event. They were military officers who were traveling for a course in the north, and the plane, upon takeoff, I think they said 3 minutes upon takeoff, it crashed, 163 people on board. So the wives of these military officers say that since then, they never received any form of compensation. They said, or support. And they were able to say this during a distribution of palliatives, during a call during the distribution of palliative to widows of deceased military officers in the South by the wife of the Chief of Defense Staff, that's Mrs. Ogogo Musa. So they're asking that they should please take their cry to the wife of the president, Mrs. Tinubu, that, these women, many of them have passed on since then. It's been over 30 years this happened. Some of their children to have passed on. They said education, they didn't get any form of support for the education of their children. So many things they had to carry alone throughout this period. And they hope that, this case will be looked into and they can get some form of compensation.
So more news is coming out about the TB Joshua pastor, a former worker of TB Joshua, and the current pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Debo Akinyemi, was interviewed by Punch, where he made some really shocking revelations about the late pastor. Talked about the fact that he was very nocturnal. He has all his meetings late into the night, 12 a.m. He can ask them to show up at 6 p.m., but doesn't show up until like midnight. And then the meeting's like 10 minutes. He gets them to eat food. And for couples, he swaps them. For those who are having issues with fertility, he swapped couples and have them to exchange spouses so they can have children. He was quite generous with funds, and they lived a very regimented life where everything they needed, you can't have bank accounts, you can't go out, you can't have regular jobs. Whatever you need is provided by the church, and it's provided promptly. So it was really very interesting interview there. It was quite shocking. Okay, moving on now to Daily Sun. Judgment Day for governors. Burial laws, Soludo Catholic Church on warpath. Better Edu, don't spare anybody involved, Obi tells Tinubu. Sultan directs Muslims to watch out for new moon of Rajab. Wike issues threats over Abuja light rail. Tinubu approves committee to revive Ajaokuta steel plant. US hands over anti-human trafficking office to Lagos government. My book unveils untold story of Buhari's 8 years in office, says Femi Adesina. And CBN names new board management for Union Polaris, and Keystone Banks. Okay, which story are we starting with?
Should I start with
Son?
the Sultan's story? So the Sultan, of course, has announced that Muslims should start to look out January 12th for the moon, welcoming the month of Rajab. So right after Rajab is Shaban and Ramadan just kicks off. Today is the 29th day of Jumada Thani, which is the month before Rajab. And so we start to search for the month. I'm just counting down to Ramadan. Those of us that we are owing, those of us that we just fast finish last year. Go and pay.
Counting down with you.
Okay.
So Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has come under attack from the Catholic Archbishop of Onitsha and Metropolitan of Onitsha Ecclesiastical Province, Most Reverend Valerian Okeke, over his statements against the church. So they said Soludo had engaged the cleric in a war of words after the governor threatened to impose a fine on the Obima family for celebrating the funeral ceremony of Ezinne Grace Obima in a flamboyant manner. Said the governor, had blamed the family for overshooting the limit of burial expenses prescribed by the law. And he said the insignificant low-key burial of his own father, that's Pa Simeon Soludo, was a child's play compared to that of the late Madam Obima, who died at 88. But the Archbishop has reacted, and he said that the governor is stepping into areas that he has no jurisdiction over, and he asked him to respect the boundaries of principles of separation of jurisdiction. And in separation of power, you don't make laws for the church on how to bury the dead, because it's bound to fail. It's not the duty of the government to make laws on how Christians should bury their dead, because there are more serious things that the government should, focus on. And any law that is impossible to keep or enforce should be considered unjust. He says the church, the church made laws, where they felt that they wanted to reduce the costs that they use for their burials, but that is for them to determine, and that's also for the family members of the owner of the dead to say, okay, this is what we have and this is what we can spend, that it doesn't concern the government. But I think the government, I absolutely disagree with them. I think the government is looking at, because I remember when we buried, when I went to Delta State to bury my auntie, and by the time I got there, things had changed. And I was asking, there were no, usually we have large groups collecting this money, collecting that money, people would borrow to bury. But by the time I got there, everything was just done so small. I didn't even see things exchanging hands. And I was asking what happened, because I knew that those people had the ability to do a very large burial. And they said the government of the town had, put laws in place to help people be able to bury sanely without getting into debt. So I think the government can also weigh. We're all trying to see how we can make life easy.
I don't even agree that it's the church's call. It's the traditional rulers. It was custom that brought this flamboyant and befitting burial thing. Even in my area, it's the traditional rulers that cut and curb all of these excesses. So it's not the point of church should be silent and leave the government.
It's not a hot topic today. I
just remember when Chimamanda called out some Catholic priests. She says when her mom died, they were constantly asking for money. It was a conversation.
Okay, so United Nations Consulate yesterday handed over the Countering Human Trafficking Office Lagos State Government to the government yesterday. The Consul General, Will Stevens, told guests at the event that the initiative represents a significant step forward in U.S. and Nigeria collective efforts to combat human trafficking across the nation. He extended his gratitude to all the partners and also said that the U.S. has, between the years 2021 and 2023, the U.S. has provided $1.3 million to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, that's UNODC, to support Nigerian government's efforts to protect those who are vulnerable to trafficking. Moving on quickly now to Vanguard, the major headline, Edugate. APC governors Peter Obi backed Tinubu on probe. Attacks Governor Aliyah Bar's local government chairman from leaving domains. New bank CEOs will boost confidence, says NECA and others. 32-year-old bank staff commits suicide over harsh economy. And no grief for anybody. Lawyers fault police caution as army adopts slogan to fight insurgents. Okay.
Yeah, Educate. Vanguard is calling it Educate. Some of us are calling it Better Gate. So governors of the ruling APC have weighed in on the recent suspension of handlers of the nation's social investment programs. That's the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu. And they're asking Nigerians to be patient with as the president will take further action based on the outcome of ongoing investigation. And we have in a unique case where the presidential candidate of the Labour Party is agreeing and in support of what the president is doing concerning this case. He says that it's reported that he's thrown his weight behind the president's action, asking him not to spare anyone involved in the financial malfeasance in the ministry. The APC governors too have come together. They're united in supporting the president and the APC administration for this investigation, and they're asking Nigerians that, allow for investigations to happen, and whatever the outcome is, will be based on these investigations.
Quickly, no grief for anybody is a slogan we all adopted, in the country.
Except me too. Except me.
And, the police has issued out a warning against the statement, saying that it's capable of inciting people. Lawyers, on the other hand, are disagreeing, say there's nothing like that. It's just an expression of antiquity, and the police cannot stop or criminalize it. The soldiers, on the other hand, have adopted the same no grief for anybody, saying they are not going to grieve for terrorists, and they are not going to grieve for anything that's not working, in the country. And it's just been back and forth. So I think we need to just decide what we want. But for me, I don't think there's anything wrong.
Not green for.
Yeah, let's go on a break. When we come back,
put it in context.
To continue with the show. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. Join us on the show is the CEO, Jedida's Grand Services, and the convener, the Decorator Summit, Agatha Adeshigwen. Welcome to the show, madam.
Thank you for having me.
She'll be telling us what the Decorator Summit is all about and how she decorated our studio. She really went all out to not just TVs, not just Your View, but E-Splash, all the various shows, and even the station. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being
I did that in collaboration with my team, so it was not just myself alone. Yes.
That's good. So tell us about the summit. It's coming up soon.
Yes, it is. Actually, on the 6th and 7th of February.
Oh, nice.
And the Decorator Summit is actually designed to bring together decorators. So when I say decorators, I'm talking about florists, balloon artists, venue stylists, anybody in the creative space. And when we bring them together, it's not just to come and learn and leave. They are there to be mentored. We put them in a support group for 1 year, where continuous training goes on. And then these trainings are targeted at helping them to scale up their businesses and to do better.
Yeah, so what are some of the challenges decorators have faced so far? And would you be helping them address those challenges in this summit?
Yes, there are lots of challenges. We have challenges from customers, the venue, logistics, manpower. It's a whole lot. And in the summit and after the summit, we deal with all of this. So we bring in people. So aside from the summit day, where we have speakers come in, we also bring in facilitators in the groups that address the problems. So we have a pool. When we bring in, when the decorators come in and we're in the group, there's a pool that everybody tries to fill this Google form that we send out to say, okay, what are your peculiar problems that you have? And the ones that stand out are the ones I've just mentioned.
Right.
So everybody feels that the decorator is really hitting a lot of money. So when you bring them and say, okay, I need you to help me do this, especially the logistics thing. In fact, the increase of the pump price has made everything go haywire.
Yeah.
And it's not just us now that it will affect. It also affects the client.
Yeah.
So everything, when you do the costing, is the client that bears it at the end of the day. So sometimes, even if you intend to, okay, I really need to do this, So you can do half and half.
So with you know, what I find with like lots of decorators is something that happens because of passion for it, or you have an eye for it. Does this summit also provide like a home where they can come and get support in ideas?
Yes.
You know, up-and-coming decorators.
Yes.
How does this summit help them? And after the summit, what are the other support that they can get?
Okay, so the summit is not just for the upcoming. We have intermediary, we also have established decorators in our midst. So what happens in the mentorship, we put together an established decorator with somebody who is just coming up. So that person mentors the upcoming decorator to help them out. Okay, so I passed through this road and it didn't profit me, so don't pass there. So that's what the mentoring does. And when they have a job that is bigger than, or somewhat bigger than their capacity, they bring it on the group. So people
collaborate.
Yes, so there's collaboration, there's support, especially during the Christmas period, you know, when it's crazy. You begin to look for help here and there and you don't get. So we get together, like I told you, this was done in collaboration with everyone on the Decorator Summit.
Wow.
So it was not just about me. I just put it out there. We have something that we're doing for TVC. Who has this? Who has that? Who has
fantastic.
that? So, yeah, we pulled it together and we made this happen. So that's it. So if you're an upcoming decorator, Decorator Summit is your home.
Yeah.
Because we train you. Bookkeeping, tax matters, you know, all of that.
Business of decorating.
Yes. So we train you not just the skill, because every time we have the summit, we make them upscale. So we bring in people that know the latest trends, you know, in the industry, and they come teach on balloon artistry, floristry, or decor prop making. So we have them coming.
Huge. I'm so impressed by what you've said, but I'm wondering, this summit, does it happen every year? How does it happen? What does it take to get into the summit?
Okay. So it's a yearly summit. We started 2021. And we are here 4 years. So God has been good, and we've had support from the industry. People have been attending the summit, and so what it takes to come in is just for you to register and then make your payments. We've made it easier this year. So before now, we used to have everything one day. So the speaking from our industry experts, and then the hands-on training. But we realized that we needed to have more time for everything. So this year we've made it 2 days instead of 1 day. Yes, yeah. So
how do you register? Tell us the website, how do you go to online, where do they...
Okay, so there is a link on our bio on Instagram, the Decorator Summit. So when you get there, the Decorator Summit, that's the Instagram handle, the Decorator Summit. So when you get on that handle, you go, yes, so you follow the link and you register. Well, once you register, we capture your details and then we reach out.
Any discounts?
Oh, well. Okay, so for our returning participants, it's 60,000 for them.
Okay.
If you're just joining us for the first time, it's 70,000. Okay. And then we've made it easy. So if you are
far away,
online.
if you're yes, we also have virtual attendees. So people that are not in Lagos and can't travel down, we have people travel down as far as from Makurdi to come and attend. Yeah, Abuja. Wow. We have people in those axes coming from Calabar. You understand? So we have people everywhere. So it's a strong support group we have. So if you are a group of 5, it's 275,000. So the discount is a lot more. But for the second day, there is no discount for the second day because it's highly subsidized. Yes. Okay. We are bringing in 5 different professionals to teach, to train. So we can't subsidize.
It's good to see the kind of support system that your industry has built. I mean, that is fantastic. When you said balloon artisan, like,
and everything.
If I cannot go and get a degree in balloon artistry, so I mean, like,
it's certified.
Let me charge you something for your summit. Okay. Let's talk. I would like for you guys to talk about how to make decoration much more sustainable.
Okay.
Environmental friendly. Okay. Let's Nigerian decorators look into that.
Yeah,
Thank
it's nice.
you. Thank
well, it was really nice. Any final words you want to tell? Because before we wrap up, any final words to your viewers? Any final words?
Yes, I would want to say, as a decorator, you need to scale up. You don't have to do business the way you've been doing it before. My pastor says, sorry, let me mention him, Pastor Samadeyemi. He says, if you do things the way you've always done and expect a different result, that's another name for, let me not say it.
Yeah.
So we are asking every decorator in the event industry to come learn how to do business unusual this year.
Fantastic.
So whatever you're giving out to your client would not be what you used to do before.
Okay.
So we're asking everybody to come on board, join this train.
Yeah,
It's going to take us to a
fantastic.
better place.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
wish you all the best at
Thank
the
you,
summit.
thank you.
That's all we can take on this segment. When we come back, bring in our special guest. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. On this segment, we have with us the former Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola. He'll be speaking to us about his new book, Nigerian Public Discourse. He will also be speaking on the state of the nation. You can join the conversation much later. You can call us on 081 076 41679, 090 2416 3440. You can also tweet to us at TVC Entertainment using the Your View on TVC hashtag. Welcome to the show, sir.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's good to have you back after many long years. We're happy to have you back.
Good to be here.
So, we got a copy of your monograph. And I think I've almost finished it, and I think I couldn't stop it. And I think it's such a good book that I've read because I love the fact that you highlighted the key issues Nigerians talk about, and you gave your perspective. Let's start with why you thought this was necessary to have this book in the first place.
Okay. This book is hopefully meant to provoke intellectual rigor to our developmental issues and the way we talk about our country and about ourselves and all of those kind of things. Now, it started as an act of provocation itself.
Right.
About 2 years ago. I was having a conversation with some of my staff and some of my colleagues, and then a debate ensued. And somebody said, look, why don't you put this down and write? I said, I don't have the time to write. I'm busy with files and all that. I said, okay, you know what? I'll bring a recorder. You can dictate all your thoughts. I will transcribe them. And that's how it started. So we had this session after session after session, and he was kind enough to help my special assistant on legal matters, Mr. Lanre Akishola. He transcribed my entire dictation. That was 2 years ago. So I started the editorial work, and then I lost the manuscript that I had edited. So, of course, I had the backup on the system, but without the edit. So I just left it alone until then, after I left office. And the conversation started again. I said, look, we've talked about this, and somebody said, okay, you know what? Let me do the edit for you, since you don't want to touch it again. So put together a team of people to edit it, and then they sent it back to me, and then I did the final edit. So here we are.
Right, good.
Let me quickly just say, this is an SEN's language. As you know, I read simple. I always have to interpret to simple English to comprehend things, and it took me a while. I saw that it was detailed. I used to think BRF, the governor. I always forget the SEN part, but this is like going back to school. It's a very, I call it a book that sparks critical thinking, making people question what you hear, what you're used to. Usually we'll just hear things in Nigeria and we'll fly with it. But reading the book, I kept thinking Nigerians should go deep into critical thinking. So was that one of your objectives, to spark the conversation amongst general Nigerians, not necessarily people in public service, or just spark that critical thinking, the power to question everything that you see? Because I like one of the lines where you use the Okparaji story, I think, the football, I'm trying to remember.
India.
And the India experience. Yeah, you know, the
Thunder
football,
Balogun.
Thunder Balogun story. And I have never questioned it. I have also never questioned the Okun and
The
I never
lagoon
mixed
water and...
in fact, I thought it would be a cost to try it. You know, so reading that, and I was just like, is that the intention? You know, to get everybody
you know, it's like a deja vu moment, if you like, listening to you saying that it's already provoking you to question things, and that really was the objective, and that's why I said the hope is that it will provoke intellectual rigor, it will provoke us to ask questions about things, and if you look at the much vexed issue about how many we are, for example, population. And that's a big planning
Number keeps changing.
A big issue. If you look at why is it that we fix supposedly minimum wage, but we end up with paying everybody salary upgrades, and then it can be implemented, but in other countries, minimum wage works. So those are things that I think we should all interrogate. If you look at conversations about we have housing deficit of
17 million.
awkward numbers of millions, and which country has that? So we just need to put some rigor again into all of these questions. And
You get a few more questions. Go ahead.
So, sir, of course, what everyone has said already, which for me I understood immediately, that you're trying to raise a group of, not just a particular group, but Nigerians to be, in our conversations, to be more fact-driven, credible. And, you know, you also mentioned the fact that we tend to just lean into public sentimentalism. And for me, it was more like a charge to especially those of us who have platforms. And when we speak, are we really honest that we are brave enough to speak credibly, even when it's not what the public is expecting us to say, or even when the public is finding it hard to receive? So I just thought that was more a charge to those who have platforms. And before it would have been just TV or radio, you can go to those places, they have NBC. But now we have people with phones in their homes, and they are influencing hundreds and thousands of people in Nigeria and across. You know, so what do you hope, you know, someone with a phone that gets this book would learn from your book?
well, I do hope that there will be the discernment to decide whether to push something as fact or to caution your audience to say, I can't verify this, but I heard it. And there's a very, very thin line between all of that. And it's a very important point that you take about the rule. For example, if you look at the way we have seemingly conflated our governments with our country. So every time our government lets us down, is the country that we throw under the bus. But the country has done nothing to us. Nigeria has done nothing to us.
Totally agree.
I read, you know, that thing you just said now. I read it on page 94.
Yeah.
And I was going to use it as my closing remark, but since you mentioned it,
Let's go there.
Let's go there. And it made me cry when I read that part. Like a tear dropped. It says, we must understand that government is different from country. We must criticize government and politicians without throwing our country under the bus. This is possible. Governments will change. Politicians will come and go. But the territory of the Federal Republic of Nigeria
Remains.
will outlive us. Let us enhance the power, prestige, and good name of Nigeria for ourselves and the generations to come. Honestly, that broke my heart. Because for a second, I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done to my nation? What are we doing to our nation? What are we doing to this territory? What am I handing over to my child based on the conversations we're seeing? Yeah. So it really breaks me as a citizen that, okay, listen, we need to really be conscious of what we're doing. But let's not go ahead of ourselves because there's so much to break down. Yeah. Let me let BC have our opening statement, then we'll take it gradually. Go ahead.
So you also harped on, the book is lovely, by the way. I studied political science in school, and like Nima rightly said, it took me back to class. Like, this kind of conversation, I'm not ready to sit down and listen and have it, you know. But you mentioned incorrect narrative going around and how we're not able to get proper data for certain things. And you give instances of where some laws are already been moved from the federal to the government, and after a while it goes back into the federal books, and the new crop of politicians need to begin to ask these questions and, you know, draw the line. Now, what would you suggest in regards to politicians understanding the laws that they have? The states knowing the laws, knowing their jurisdiction, how do you expect them to go about this so that we don't have conflicting interests at every point in time? And there's also another case I think we took last week in the papers where the waterways between Lagos and the federal government was under pressure. Yes, Niwa.
Excuse me.
Yes, yeah.
Now, if as some people say, that politics is a game, how many know the rules? And the rules are there, the Constitution. How many of us even read it? And when I urge people to read the Constitution, they tell me, oh, I'm not a lawyer. I said, no, it's written in very simple English,
It is.
first of all. Secondly, you don't have to memorize
The section.
everything by heart, but you can read 1 page or 2 pages every morning. And you will see that there's a lot there that we're not aware of. For example, people expect that a president, look at the powers of the president, for example, that
He has
we
all
broke down.
powers.
Everybody said, oh, the president is all too powerful. And all presidents have been. In fact, some have said Nigerian president is the most powerful. But going through the Constitution, you see that the president is mentioned about 48 or 49 times in the edition of the Constitution that I used for the book before the last amendment of the Constitution in 2023. And in all of those places, we seem to have conflicted the powers, his duties, and functions all together and aggregated all of them as powers. He has duties, he has powers, he has functions, and none of them is without a countervailing force, either approval of the National Assembly, confirmation of this, and subject to such other powers. So he's not that all too powerful president that we think. And then unlike the United States, where one of their vice presidents famously described himself, I believe, as a spare tire, our vice president is not a spare tire.
Wow.
The Constitution makes very clear provisions. He's chairman of the National Economic Council, which is a very, very big institution for advising the president on economic matters. The framers of that Constitution deliberately separated economic responsibilities in terms of preparation and advisory work and gave it to the vice president. He's chairman of the Boundaries Commission. He's also chairman of the National Council on Privatization, amongst other agencies that even statutes give him responsibility to assist the president. While you will see that the president is chairman of the Police Council and National Council of State and Army Council and all of those kind of things. So these are the rules that underpin how this game of politics works. And so we are not necessarily the same with other countries. I don't know how many other countries have it in their constitution, for example, that every state must have a nominee in the Federal Executive Council. And so when we're in a hurry for the president to quickly pick all of his team members, we start comparing our process with that of other countries where the president is not under obligation to pick from every state. So how many presidents come and know who is from which state? Now, what goes on in each state? There are internal arrangements there where, for example, I think I heard on your program, for example, where there was a narrative about how many ministers had come from a particular senatorial district. Those things are internal politics of each state, rotated. So if the governor comes from the east, the minister must come from west. And so all of these are things the president must fact check before he makes a nominee. I know a state where the governor decamped from our party simply because a woman was picked to represent that state.
Wow.
And they didn't want it. So these are all of the considerations that where we're understandably expecting a president to quickly announce his ministers. This is background work that is going on.
I want us now go into each of the issues, but interestingly, I just realized that you didn't mention gender. Not that you mentioned something like that in the chapters. I'm not sure you addressed anything that has to do with the gender issues we have, but either way.
Those were the frontline issues of that moment. As I told you,
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
work of provocation.
realized
I'm
now.
thinking of doing a sequel now.
Yeah, we'd love
to
that kind of
this.
sequel. Now, let me start with the issue of data, and I'd like ladies each go into which angle that interests them.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that caught me is how we easily accept international data and use it as facts. You know, oh, 17 million children are out of school based on some statistics show that, you know, and I've gone for multiple events. And I think you have interrogated us sometime when we were using this data and said, how do you know? On what premise were these data provided? Just for those who haven't read the book, could you help us understand the danger of sharing and recirculating improper inaccurate data that we're not
Outdated.
or outdated data?
I hear you. There are many dangers. But the one that scares me most is that there are people who get employed and who keep a job because we have a problem.
Yes, you said that.
And the way they continue to magnify that problem is a problem that will never go away.
Oh, wow.
And so that is one danger. And then we begin to continuously look at
Sir, so don't go too fast. I always like my viewers to understand what that means. So for example, you're saying...
For example, if they tell us, or people say, or statistics show that we have 17 million housing deficit.
Yes.
So how do we build that? So we look like a hopeless place. That's a danger. I did a quick math. And if you divide, let us say we want to build 1 million houses. And I've had people say you can build 1 million houses in a year.
Wow.
I am yet to see anybody do that. The oldest public housing program in the world is run in the UK. Started, I think, in 1918. So it's over a century. I've studied it extensively. It usually targets about 300,000 to 400,000 houses over every 5 or 4 years. And there is never 100% performance. So some people come and say, you want to build a million houses a year. So if you just do a quick math and divide that by 365 days, you get about 2,000 something or so, if my math is correct, houses per day, from foundation to roof and finish and fittings. How is that possible? And so it's like they set us on an impossible mission. And it begins to destroy your psyche and your confidence.
As a people.
Wow.
That's a danger.
Yeah.
There are many others.
Yes. So
And then you see, I'm sorry, some of these things have been told to me. And you will see in the preface where I try to address it. Late Professor Chino Achebe addressed some of these problems when I was 20. And those problems haven't gone away. I was a young man, now a parent. And I'm saying, what's going to happen to the next generation if they don't think this through properly? So that's the point I just wanted to.
Good man.
So, you know, you talked about the danger, what you most fear, the destruction of psyche. And for me, when you said that, it made all the sense. And that's why you'll be talking to a 6-year-old who will say, I want to go to America, or I'm an American. Because the psyche, through their media and everything, is to empower them, to make them feel proud of where they're from. But our psyche, a 5-year-old already knows, I mean, our messaging in Nigeria, a 5-year-old already knows it means hopeless. It means it's over. You talked about constructing the myth of $1 a day economic perspective. I like that because it spoke to me. We're talking about poverty. I have mentioned here, I grew up with very little. So I understand, you know, conditions like that. And you try to explain to us, poverty in America is different from poverty in Nigeria. I grew up with little, but I understood it was poverty of money, not of a lot, you know, but we had support. And a lot of us were able to launch to who we are today because of the support. So we have a culture where people would, you know, come together in one way or the other to help you. We seem to be more selfless in that culture. The American system seems to be paycheck on paycheck. You work for what you get, and if you don't have that, you know, it's over. And so when we talk about poverty, or we talk about, you know, the economic situation, we need to put that into consideration. And I feel that that's something that Nigerians need to hear more of. And so that is where we talk about, I'm sorry, it's like I'm summarizing your book. Yes. So, and for me, it's when we're saying our local problems, we should find local solutions. That stood out for me. Yeah.
You see, I think that we're all responding to the same set of stimuli, really. And even some of our people don't know that there is homelessness in America. They see America from the movies.
Yeah.
True.
A shining light on the hill. And as I said to some of my colleagues when we have these conversations, I think that we have valorized other people's dreams more than we have valorized our own dreams. The Nigerian dream is a big dream.
Yes.
And it's happening every day. You see so many grass to grace stories, but we don't valorize them.
Yeah.
And we are looking for other people's dreams. And perhaps those of us who have these platforms must continuously celebrate the endless possibilities of dreams coming true for Nigerians.
Do we know our dreams, sir? Can we articulate our
Well,
dreams?
people have different dreams. People want to be successful.
Yeah.
The average mother, the average father, wants a successful child, basic education, be successful, pay your check. Those dreams can happen. And there is much more room for them to happen here
Shouldn't
than
we
there.
have like a blanket dream? So, you know, also in your book you talked about
Interesting point.
changing the mentality of the
Interesting
people.
point. Very, very
A
interesting.
blanket dream that even a child in nursery school can say, this is the Nigerian dream.
I
Wouldn't
hear
that
you.
be
I
easier
hear
to
you.
buy into?
Because all of
I
us
won't
want
call
the
it a
American
Nigerian
dream in
dream. I
Nigeria.
won't call it a Nigerian dream.
Okay.
I will call it the Nigerian creed.
That's serious.
You see, and it's very important. It's something I'm still visualizing, but I know that we need a Nigerian creed. A creed away from our tribes, a creed away from our faith, a creed away from our ethnicity, and a creed away from our politics.
I agree.
An identity around which all of us
Would hold.
Yeah.
can,
Proud of.
can
Identify
really-
with.
Yes, it's
I
easier.
totally agree. And it brings me to page 14 and 15 of this book, where from what you just said,
that's
how
where
you
I'm going.
described corruption, and you know, your emphasis was on enforcement of law and order, but then you came to financial corruption, which raises perspective for me, and you said it's undoubtedly deleterious, but the corruption of values is even more detrimental and damaging to society, which is where I've always been for a long time.
Yeah.
So arrest the thief, yes, but the culture, the permission is everywhere. You know, make it or fake it or make it in very different slogans.
Yeah.
You know, the way we were brought up, values was what was driven.
Yeah.
The fear that my father would hear that I was involved in something would make me think not twice, 3 times before I get involved in it. But now, parents excuse and say, no, make it. You don't make them now at whatever cost. So how do we, as a nation, promote a common or promote our values where we stand, where we can speak up against something? Now, when you have money, you can excuse any misbehavior. How do we get back there? And I'm talking about institutions. We have the National Orientation Agency, and I say it all the time on this table. I don't know whether that agency works. I think it doesn't work. What else can we do besides that?
I think that's the hardest work that those of us who are of this status and age can do to breed a new generation of Nigerians, and that work must start from primary school. Somebody was talking to me yesterday about the need to collaborate with the public sector education system. They've done it successfully in their private institutions, where education is more than that the public schools are doing well, the grades are good, but what kind of children, what kind of young adults are they producing morally, ethically, and what kind of values? Will they become the kind of men and women we want to see in 20 years? And I think that's where the work is. And that's where I think also that the reinforcement of whatever creed that we come around. So people are talking about national conference and all of that. I think the biggest conversation we should have is what is our national creed.
Like that.
And that encompasses our values and our dreams and something around which all of us can say, I want to be a part of this.
I'd like to stay on the corruption because I was actually on page 14 and 15, so I'm happy that you took us there. Two key things, law and order, because she said that we're here fighting the same terms of corruption. But what we should actually be seeking is to ensure the rule of law. There has to be law, there has to be consequences for every action at every stage. And that in itself also got to me. But what's really got to me, you said to illustrate the corruption, he said, what we don't typically recognize as corruption, you now listed a few things. And number one, Nick, I read that number one, I said, I know wonder he didn't come for my book launch. He humbled you. He said, no wonder he didn't come for my book launch. I said, he must, because of that. He said, number one, he said, the act of inviting a public official or a politically exposed person to a fundraising event or award ceremony with the expectation of securing a financial donation or political power. You know whether he did not show up on that day. No problem, I forgive you. But I got it. But these are supposed to be things that we normalize.
Yeah.
Should we read,
There are acts of corruption. Yes, please.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say that some of us are carrying shoulder, I'm not corrupt. But when you now read some of it,
See yourself. Like,
straight bullet will hit you in some areas.
Number two.
So number two, the practice of conferring chieftaincy titles or professional fellowships on politically exposed persons who are still in office, thereby blurring the lines between professional merit and
political influence.
Go.
The utilization of connections, networks, or influence.
You are connected to everybody in Nigeria. If you have any problem, Nemo will sort you out.
that one I would like for
So let her finish that sentence.
Payment for children or worse, bypassing due process and potentially disadvantaging others. This one, it talks to me directly.
are we not allowed to use them? What is the essence of network?
Knowing the governor, I cannot call him.
Okay, so it's just for all of us, really, and I think we're all guilty.
Yeah.
We are.
But it's for us to really reset
Reflect.
and perhaps in the evolution of that creed, say to ourselves, what is the definition of corruption? Because as I point a finger, how many are coming back at me?
4.
Okay, so, and I think that's from where we started, it is just to provoke all ourselves. And as Moraya said, some of these things have been normalized, but are they lawful? Are they right? And what standard do we want those hypothetical children in primary school? What kind of people do we want them to be in 30 years?
Yeah.
A much better version of ourselves?
Or not.
Yeah. So let me read this. For me, the practice of paying 2 years' rent in advance by individuals who earn their salaries monthly in arrears. So it raises the question about financial sustainability and potential for exploitation. I know this is something that you tried to push.
Yeah.
And, I didn't see it from the point of corruption. It's true. So if someone that earns monthly and a stipend, and you're asking the person to pay 2 years, what are you pushing the person to do?
No, he may not even be deliberately pushing to anything.
I get
but when
it,
he brings the money, something must tell you that this thing is not orderly. And there is no better illustration of the trauma to ourselves. Because I really believe that if we normalize rent to coincide with incomes on a monthly basis in arrears, or a significant part of this inflation, cost of living will drop. It's a self-inflicted pain.
Yes.
But let me dramatize the trauma. I don't know how many of us, and I'm sure some of us have seen those sketches in dramas where the landlord is knocking. And the parents are telling the child, go and tell the landlord we are not at home.
around.
That's how traumatizing
And that's how corruption starts.
that thing is. So what values are you setting for that child? So in some places, then the child will come innocently say, my daddy said or my mommy said I should tell you that they are not at home. You've confused the child.
Yes.
So where does the truth lie? And it is a self-inflicted. They will pay. And you see, there's a history behind this. So it never used to be like this.
Yes. Okay.
Some people used to take accommodation default, and for the landlord, and you must see there are two sides to it. Who sees the house as a source of income is now kept out of pocket.
Yeah.
He then has to go to court, and he stays for an inordinate time there, and he's unable to pay his own bills. So some people devise the measure to say, okay, well, if I can't get it, let me get it in advance. And I know that when it's court time, so it's like the proverbial saying that when the bird learns to fly without perching, the hunter must learn to shoot without missing.
Stopping, yes.
So, but it's hurt us in many more ways than we probably have accounted for.
We'll have to go to State of the Nation very soon, but I'd like us to wrap up on this book very quickly. Go ahead.
Something happened recently where you talked about your experience with the military officer and how you arrested him and you admonished him, explained to him that his conduct in uniform was most deleterious again, because all the paraphernalia of the state has been deployed towards an unlawful purpose. Recently, Governor Sanwo-Olu arrested a young man, and while he was being, dragged to the car, he said, I'm a soldier, Oga. And the narratives started from left, right, where soldiers felt it wasn't proper and all of that. How would you say, that example you set then, how did you feel knowing that it didn't stop that abuse that was happening? Or how do you want to address this particular one?
Well, bad behavior becomes habitual if, as we say, there are no consequences for it. And good behavior must also be rewarded in order to make it sustainable. But I think that the Chief of Army Staff has set the matter in the right context, that the Nigerian Army is an institution of laws and order. And let us just leave it there. And I'm sure that they will do what is needful in the circumstances. But what you see across is an increasing number of people in military, police, on all types of commercially operated vehicles, somewhat acting in a way that is contrary to law and order. And they are the people who should be the ones enforcing the law. So there's a need to commonly educate ourselves that this is your core mandate. So if you wear the symbol of the authority of the state to do something that is against the law, you have really hobbled all of us. It is bad enough to do it in mufti. It is bad enough. To now wear the symbol of the authority of the state. You are saying the state begins to break its own laws. That's a very bad place to be.
Okay, we have to be caught in mufti, and then you now open your mouth and say, I'm a soldier.
Hiding your face. So we're going to be wrapping up very soon on the book because I know we'd like to hear your thoughts on some serious State of the Nation. However, there were two other areas I wanted you to touch on before we wrap up. On the issue of, I think, is the national anthem, and then the INEC versus the Associated Press in the US, and the mentality of how we don't realize the capacity of INEC, the real work INEC is doing, not just Nigeria, but across. I'd like you to touch on that very quickly before I go to the national anthem issue.
Well, I think there are many sides to it, but the exciting part for me will be that, first, where is our culture of competition? So every time we lose, the umpire is bad. But this is a much respected umpire in other jurisdictions. And I've given instances of places where INEC is doing phenomenal work, credible work, helping other electoral commissions across Africa. And their work is valued. But we have, every time we want the chairman to be changed, we want this to be changed, but the jurisprudence around elections, first of all, is also something all of us must understand. It's not a perfect undertaking anywhere in the world. There are cases, and people perhaps don't have the opportunity or don't focus their attention. So until we saw the January 6th uprising in the US, people didn't know that election results were not collated and declared until weeks after the presidential election in the US, and that there is no INEC. Each state conducts its own election, and then all of this is collated. But people are now the wiser. So it's the Associated Press that declares the result, and the parties have learned to accept it. And perhaps someday we will get there. So,
okay, let me just read the last paragraph and we'll move on concerning the national anthem. So from this chapter, he was challenging why national anthem is being read, is being sung everywhere, in every event you go to. They feel that they must do opening prayer and all the protocols observed and stuff like that. So after all the conversation you had, let me end with this. He says, traditionally, international sporting events will qualify. Official state visits by sovereign should qualify for the national anthem. However, businesses, meetings, conferences, seminars where state governors and their deputies are participating should not qualify. I hope people can listen to that, because we sing the national anthem.
Let him just say something about the census
behind it.
The anthem is the expression of our sovereign power. And in all the places that I have been, and I've traveled quite a bit, we go to meetings, there's no opening prayer. We just get there. I've been to Israel, we've got meetings, there's no prayer. I've been to Saudi, we don't pray. We get on with the business. And they don't sing national anthem. So that got me thinking. And I realized that we were just doing something funny. The places where you hear national anthems, football matches, state visits by presidents, sovereign, Olympics, where medals are being presented, and a few other. So I think that the National Assembly has a responsibility here to pass a law to then say these are the places where you can read, because it just makes a mockery of the. Perhaps
we sing it so much that we don't even internalize it. We don't understand what it means.
Yes, I am thinking we're not singing it enough.
No, we are over singing it. Sorry.
Maybe where you are, maybe where she is, they don't sing it.
I feel like we are not singing it.
I've been at events where, so there was an event where we were, and the vice president was attending. It was a birthday. He came in his private capacity in relation with the person, and they were playing. I said, stop. He's not here for a state function. And the vice president said, oh, thank you today. So governors are not sovereign, so why should you be playing? And every time I go to a plane, I say, stop. Don't play national anthem for me.
What I would suggest to that is maybe we should look for the Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa versions of it and add to it.
There are plenty of languages, something like
I know.
It's a thought, but let the National Assembly guide us.
Community, find the language there and try and so that it will have more meaning.
Perhaps.
I need to wrap up on
wanted
this.
you to quickly talk about the census. You in the book, you were mentioning the projection that you're waiting for the outcome of the 2023 housing and population census. We are in 2024. I don't even know whether it will hold. How does it make you feel knowing that we're not planning that data as, that will help us break all these statistics show examples that
Well, it might be helpful to invite the chairman of the National Population Commission to share with Nigerians. They've done a lot of work. A lot of work. I think they have data on all the houses in Nigeria, for example. There's some other work to be done. But timing is going to be very, very important in how they do it and how all of us cooperate with them so that we get the full value of this exercise. However long it takes, it doesn't matter anymore. It's what is the value of what is produced. What we did in 2006 was skewed for political and other base considerations. As you will see, we challenged the results in Lagos. And the census tribunal, people don't realize that there was a census tribunal. We challenged results and the tribunal validated our challenge, which meant that the outcomes were not accurate. And so all of the figures around which we have been planning are inaccurate figures.
Yes.
So there's a big opportunity here to do something really good for the country.
All right, let me go on a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll find out what you've been up to since you left office. And if you're babysitting or you're traveling, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have our guest, Mr. Babajide Babatunde Raji Fashola. You know, you've been out of office recently, and you have a friend who's governor of Lagos State, so we're used to calling his own name, not yours.
Yes.
But you were in office for over 2 decades, over 24 years, and you've left office, and you said people expected you to run again somehow, or to just stick around in this administration to be his minister or something. That the president needs you. In your own perspective, what has been happening to you since you left office? And how would you see, are you impacting in any way in this administration, or you're just staying back and being minding your business?
Drinking water and minding your business.
Netflix and chicken.
So I have been resting,
Okay.
sleep more, eat more, and spend some time to really relish the food instead of eating in a hurry. And running off. And as you can see, I put on some weight.
Yes.
Even if I say so.
You can see.
Now I'm trying to walk that down. But otherwise, I've been good and spending time at home. So Christmas was good. Saw a couple of family members. So I've been absent for a bit, and you will see that even the dedication in that book is to family. Because they bore the brunt of my absence. So, but in terms of public issues, I'm doing what I need to do, making observations and suggestions where they're necessary, giving support. You see, in some places I've done some conversations with some subnational governments, sharing experiences, and it's a new challenge, of course, but most of the time, on a scale of 1 to 10, I spend 8 out of that.
Family.
Yes.
Good.
Focus on family.
So me, I want to know, because my curiosity was aroused when the young man Namdi Bezim did an article that you wrote a petition to the IG at the time, and I've not seen you since that time. So please, kindly address how the events, what led to the events, and how it turned out eventually.
Oh, okay. I think it started first with a story at the time that the political temperature was rather elevated, and also at the time that there were pending cases, petitions, post-election in court, and somebody started sending messages on X that I was involved in writing a judgment. And I thought that was crazy and scandalous. And the Supreme Court was also then facing some scrutiny. And I thought this is a very, very serious and dangerous allegation. The third arm of our government, on the one hand, the basis of our democracy, on the other hand, and even in undemocratic times, that was the place to go. And some people were thinking that this was something to just toy with. It was almost a treasonable act to suggest that somebody who is not a member of that institution was helping them to write a judgment. So it started for a few days, and I was still thinking what to do. Then I was at a social event. The next thing was breaking news. My house had been surrounded by soldiers in order to protect me, to ensure that I finished the job. And I said, this is a joke gone too far. This is a threat to the nation itself. And the first thing to do was to report it to law enforcement. And those were the circumstances. Yeah. So I got my team to investigate where the messaging was coming from. So we tracked the locations of the subscribers to the mobile devices that they were using. And on the basis of that, my lawyers then sent a petition to law.
Let Miriam jump in here.
But it was a very, 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 very dangerous thing to play with.
I was expecting the prosecution or...
Yeah, the law enforcement is in charge now. My lawyers are in I think there have been one or so, I'm not sure now, court appearances. Yeah. And I think that the fellow involved has probably been admitted to bail. So
yes, sir.
He will have his day in court, I believe.
Okay, sir. So, you've just told us of the rest you're getting, since you left office. But as you're aware, the administration in which you're a part of has come under a lot of criticism since this administration came in for performance, it's been criticized for corruption. Have you heard these criticisms, and what are your opinions on the things that, the criticisms that you hear flying around?
Well, it's not unusual to criticize the last team. It's almost part of the political culture, yeah? So you get used to it. Let me tell you a joke, and perhaps it will help. No, it's not a joke, it's a story, but perhaps it will help dimension stuff. So one of my colleagues called to express concern about some criticism of our tenure. And I said, okay, so who is complaining? Have you heard President Tinubu complain? He said no. I said, have you heard Vice President Shetima complain? He said no. I said, okay, so far, so good. Do you remember in the previous tenure when we took over, when some of us were criticizing A and B, what was the President Buhari and Jonathan was doing? They were having lunch together.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I hear you. Mind your business.
Yeah. So, very busy.
So let me ask you, you've spent about 24 years in active service.
21 years.
21 years active service. And, sometimes you may cast your mind back to some of the things you went through in discharging your duties. Do you have any regrets? Is there anything you wish, or if given another chance, you would implement differently than how you did it initially?
It's not necessarily, it's not normal for me to look back with regret, because I think I've run my races as hard as I could. So I take the view that anything that wasn't possible was not meant to be. Mm-hmm. So I gave it every shot that I could. So some things, and this is the truism of life. I was telling my staff this morning when we were coming that we were on the Third Mainland Bridge, and I said the concept of the Third Mainland Bridge started during Gowon's administration, when Awolowo was financing. And he said, what? I said Babangida finished it.
Yeah.
So, and that spanned many administration. So there are things that you start and that you don't finish.
Others finish.
But the important thing is, what did you do with the time and the resources that you had? Did you give it your best shot?
Because of time, I would like you to, because there are a few things there are important things I'd like you to touch on before you go. Time is running out very quickly. Recently, Beta Edu was suspended from office because of what happened. Many of us read the papers. Many have argued that what happened is not really over the top, because it happens in the ministry where you can request for advancement, we give into a private account because you're trying to get things done faster, quicker. Others are saying, no,
I think that is on the list.
Sorry?
It's on that list.
Yeah, I know, it's on that list. What are your own views on it? Because others are saying, please let her go back to her work. I mean, it's on, yes, she made a mistake, she's young, she's vibrant. I mean, we know that it could have been an error that she made, that she wasn't intentional. What are your own personal views on this Beta Gate?
I don't have any personal views because I don't have the facts. So some of what is coming out may not be factual. It is a matter under investigation, as you have reported, and I think that we should leave it at that. Let the process do its work. Interposing personal views in any event raises the question. I won't express a view if I don't have the facts, and even if I did, I might still decline to interpose a view, because when we say that we want Nigeria to have strong institutions, those institutions exist. Do we allow them to do their work without all of the pressure?
To function.
So investigations are not a switch, because it's a process, and that has to happen. Reports, outcomes have to be presented. Opinions then have to be made on the basis of facts that have been extracted. Advisory is then given to the appropriate authority on what the next steps should be.
All right.
So let's wait.
Ew.
So Nigerians are not so patient. If you see the popular opinion when it comes to things like this, and we don't have a trust for these institutions, especially the security agencies, as much as you would like. We have this mob action mentality, catch an nana, kill them now. Nobody has time to wait and see due process through. How do we shift mindsets? Because you talked about how this affects nation, and you wrote a petition when somebody did that. But a lot of people believed it. They jumped on it. How do we shift this mindset and tell people court processes take a while? I have a case that I've been doing. It's 2 years now. We've been required by the court to put on notice the other party continuously because the court wants to fulfill before all righteousness before we are ahead. And I'm trying to explain to the person, I did not know that you'll be slow like this. You know, how do we get people to understand this?
You know, because I used to work in court, trying and defending cases, I understand somewhat how this can feel. And therefore, we must respect the process. Let us remember that the Constitution we all subscribe to guarantees a presumption of innocence. We must not take that away. There's a presumption of innocence. And the reason that is important, there's a movie called When They See Us.
Yeah, Netflix.
Called When They See Us.
Yeah,
You watch films, sir.
He's home now. You're not watching movies.
No, I used to watch Netflix even whilst I was working, but I just used to pay because I would watch it late into the night. But it dramatizes the importance of the presumption of innocence and a fair trial. Yeah. Young men, taken in their prime, convicted for an offense.
African-American story, yeah.
African-American story. Based on prejudices. So we must be careful.
All right.
And I say nothing in support or against. Let us just allow the process to work. And I say no more.
Okay.
How do you feel about, governor being, 9 years since being governor of the state? How do you feel about Lagos State as it is today? Do you have any advice? Are there any comment? Are you proud of some things? Are there any criticisms?
I won't offer advice about how the state is run on TV. I have access to the governor, and from time to time we talk.
Does he still pick your calls?
Of course.
Just joking.
Haba, Murayo.
No, just no. You see, you're no more in government. Now, people say once you're no more in government, they will abandon you. So politicians will not call you, will not pick your calls again once you're out of government. But I'm happy that you still have it.
So what do you think of the state that you left behind?
No, I said I wouldn't express any comments. The state is a work in progress, and the team are doing their level best to keep things going. And they are also undertaking some challenging projects and programs and policies. Our responsibility to continue to support them. That's our responsibility. If it gets better,
let me attach something to that.
Benefit.
What do you think of the President Tinubu's administration so far? The decisions he's made, what's going on right now, the policies that we're hearing and seeing. In your view, what's 2024 looking like? What do you think?
Well, again, I think that what we must understand, and this is important, and maybe that's part of the next work, people are expectant for results, but I tell people that, look, one of the things that happens in our democracy is that transition takes place in the middle of the year. In the middle of the year. So a new government comes in usually, state and federal, when the budget is halfway done. To run a budget you did not prepare. To bring in team members, some of whom had never worked in government, I must learn the culture of government. So one of the first things that happened to me when I was chief of staff to Governor Tinubu was that I saw letters, I saw files, I knew what to do, but I didn't know how to get it to Morayo. Because Morayo had an acronym. So I must learn, so I used to write it and memorize it. My PAMSEC could sit next to me. Minutes to MOE. I say, which one is that? It says Ministry of Environment. Minutes to HCF. I say, which one is that? Honorable Commissioner for Finance. So I learned all of that. There's a language there, and it has to be learned. So all of that is going on. And there's always a distance, as I say, between policies, programs, and results. There's always a distance.
So I've seen that you retired, yes, but I also saw that you handled the training for the executive, newly appointed members of the executive in Lagos State recently, where they had a 2-day training and all of that. Have you retired into consultancy, mentorship, teaching? What exactly is it like?
No, I've retired into retirement.
Into rest.
But you know, it's an honor, really, to be invited from time to time, not to teach, but just to share experiences and also learn, because government, whether we like it or not, and governance has changed. It's changed between the time Ashwaju was governor in 1999 to when I became governor in 2007. To when Ambode became governor in 2015, so it continues to change. So those are also things to learn for me. It helps me to keep a currency of what's going on. Just as the president has continued, presidency has also continued to evolve from 1990 to today. So it's an honor to be in that space from time to time and to share my experience and also to learn theirs.
All right.
Okay. You keep in touch with the former president, President Muhammad Buhari?
I went to visit him in Daura.
Really?
Yes.
How many days did you spend?
What do you talk about after governance when you meet?
Two old men, just
No.
You cannot put him in the same.
he's an old. Can't you see the gray hair?
I went to visit him in Daura. And in fact, the same day I went to see him, I also saw President Tinubu in the evening.
Okay.
So, and he's good. He's farming, he exercises, and he gave me a good lunch.
How are his cows?
Well, I didn't go to the farm.
Oh.
Okay,
I went to
so-
the house.
Yeah. So we have.
On the day I went, I think that was market day in Dara. I think that was a Tuesday or so. So he says on market days, he doesn't go to the farm. so that all of his people can go and sell,
Oh,
go and trade
nice.
and go and do their work.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we have some comments on social media. BioCool01 says, good morning all. I'm happy to see our BRF vibrant and relaxed, having taken some time out of public service. I can tell you that public service is very challenging in Nigeria. I pray that the Almighty guide our leaders right. Great work you guys are doing. I think I missed this, but Bilkis was saying something about your book. It would be good to hand that over to students, you know, so that they can read. I thought too.
Is there going to
that
be a
you-
book launch?
There will be on the 8th of February, I believe.
Oh, nice.
8th
But
of February.
politically exposed people are not expected there.
Well, they come at their own peril.
So you have it there, and there'll be no national anthem.
Well, we'll see how that
See how
goes.
you collect money. They won't give you money for this, your book.
But this
I'm
is not
surprised
about,
they're not
this is not necessarily
Like what?
about making money.
Yeah.
It's about, as I said,
Eating.
provoking intellectual rigor to serious developmental issues.
So I know that you always talk about Alhaji Femi Okuno a lot. How is he? Is he well now?
I like
You wrote the foreword, right?
I'm going to see him soon enough. He wrote the foreword. He was kind enough to. I put a lot of pressure on him, and so we had hoped that this would have been ready in the month of independence. That was what we planned, so that at the time when we were focused on independence and our development, these conversations should have been ignited. But I am indebted to him in many ways. Not the least for all of his support and advice when I was Minister of Works. I remain conscious that I sat in his chair because he was then Federal Commissioner for Works and Housing, which is what we call Minister. today.
Yeah.
So from time to time, he shared material with me. I'm thankful. He also called me, you are not on tour. Oya Tunde, bossy tako losi tour. And all of that. So,
Because of time, let me just find out your...
and let me say this. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was awarded during his time. I think it never finished before he left. But one of the things he did was to save that median. I think then it was about 50 yards in the middle then. And whilst his colleagues were saying that median was too big, he emphasized that he was saving it almost as a land bank for future expansion of the road long after they had left. And that has afforded us the opportunity to add that additional lane today.
Yes.
And Nigeria stands in his debt. Nigeria stands in his debt, and all those who use that road for his.
Yeah, plenty of questions I want to get to you, so let me jump in.
Biko, just for the future, is there any plan somewhere around that you have to probably get into governance again? If the
Pata be
opportunity
president.
comes?
Just ask the
What
question.
also-
Do you want to become president?
I did not say that.
Would you
In
like
future,
governance president?
anyhow the governance comes.
There's no plan anywhere.
So would you
Even
like...
in
There's no plan
feel like-
anywhere.
So, you know, as I said, we only have like 3-4 minutes, so I'm trying to rush in so many things.
Okay, when I saw that Wole Soyinka, you know, in your introduction, I was like, when I saw it, I was like, would we be able to read this book? You know, the English. So how did he, what was his own contribution
Okay,
towards the
so
book?
this was my first literary adventure. And I thought, around the time after I left office, he called to say, look, I need to see you to discuss something. And I said, oh, by the way, I need you also to do something for me. And he said, what was this? So I said, when we met over lunch and we finished, I said, look, I've just tried my hands out at book writing where you are a very seasoned practitioner. Will you just please read and criticize? So he said, why not? So I emailed it to him. He read it and he called me after to say, look, there are 1 or 2 line mines here. Be careful so that you don't fall into the same criticism and that you are making of. And,
Okay.
and that was very helpful.
Let me ask the final question so that then we can wrap up. This new slang saying no grief for anybody. What are your thoughts on it? Everybody's saying there's no grief for anybody.
Well, I have no thoughts. I heard about it yesterday. I have no detail on it, so I can't. I saw.
Okay, so there's a slang says no grief for anybody.
Let me.
How do you feel about
calm
it?
down.
Because you're asking me political questions.
I don't know where it originated
Yes.
from, and I don't know what the context is. But I saw. Where was I? I was at some place yesterday afternoon. I was on my way. Yeah, I stopped by to pay a condolence visit.
Okay.
That's what happened. So I saw the first PRO saying something about no gree, and so that was all I. So unfortunately, I didn't watch the morning shows before I came here. So I don't know what the context is, so I can't comment.
Okay, so all that language is just say you cannot comment.
Yes, now.
We have to wrap up. We run out of time.
How can they get the book? Because
Once it's not a launch, it's launched in February. So after
There's
that,
a
you
launch
get
on February 8th, but there is also an opportunity to pre-order. So, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. You can find that if you go to the site of the publishers, Kuramo.
Kuramo. Because there's someone says here that he wants the book. I don't care how much it is. Please, where can I get it?
Thank you very much, sir, for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you
Round of
for
show.
having
But let me just end with this quote from Mr. Raji Fashola himself. He says, "Our understandable demands for improvement and the speed at which we seek the improvement must not blind us from what has been achieved, because these represent the foundation on which the improvement that we seek will be built upon." So I think that's a powerful message to Nigerians, not to criticize all the time, but understand, also appreciate what we have right now and encourage ourselves. Nigeria will be great again, and I'm really proud to be here. And thank you again, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Well,